Hey, you guys, welcome. Oh my God, today I'm so excited. I am talking with Raquel Hopkins. She is, get this, a capacity expert. You know I love that. Certified coach and a therapist, and she's the founder of Success is Complicated. Hi, Raquel. Welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Jamie.
So excited to talk to you. I talk a lot about capacity on this podcast, and I may have been talking about it wrong, according to you. So I am so happy to dig into this. Why don't you introduce yourself and let us know how you came to this work and how you became a capacity expert in particular?
Absolutely. So I'm excited about talking to you too because um, maybe I'll circle back, but I have an almost 3-year-old that is not potty trained, okay?
Oh, yeah, we'll fix that.
Don't judge me. I have a 10-year-old. He was awesome. I don't know about this 3-year-old. I mean, almost 3-year-old. Oh my gosh. I don't have the capacity for him.
Right,
No,
right.
so no, Raquel Hopkins. I am a licensed professional counselor, certified coach, and I'm also an HR professional. So I always tell people that I am new within the mental health space. 5 years in now. Prior to doing this, my most recent role was VP of HR for a global telecommunications company. So I've done a lot of work with people just in general. Back in 2019, how I started Success is Complicated, actually. I was pacing back and forth in my office, my nice window view, all of my exec perks, but I was not happy. I was not necessarily fulfilled. And I was like, there has to be more to life than this. And I was like, success is complicated
Yeah.
because I wanted all of those things, but I wanted another feeling that I didn't believe where I was could actually give me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go register for. I don't remember how I got into this coaching program. I remember seeing a post on Instagram that just said like, you have a gift and you need to figure out how to use it, type of thing. And I ended up coming across this coaching program. I absolutely loved it. I've always enjoyed working with people. And I was like, this, I can see myself doing this full time. Coaching wasn't as popular back then as it is now. So I always tell people that when I can't figure out my life, Jamie, I have educrastination. So if I am back in school, that means that I'm lost and I have no idea what's next and I don't know
I
what to
didn't know there
do.
was a word for that because
I
I'm not
made it
like
up.
that, but I see people do
Yeah,
that.
and I think it's okay. Now that I am where I am now, I'm like, it's okay to have educrastination. Go get another degree, add another title behind your name. You'll be okay. Eventually, you'll figure it out. So I get into that coaching program because at the time I was like, there's no way I'm going to go back into HR. So I go into, I decided to look into um, mental health because I felt like the mental health industry and coaching aligned very well, and I felt like I would be more credible.
Yeah, yeah. And it was
So
2020 and mental health was the shit was hitting the fan.
it
So
was, it was, it was. So I decided to do that, and the rest has been history. And the word capacity actually comes from adult development, which people don't know it's really a thing. So when I had gotten into the mental health program, one, I was already not fulfilled at my job. So when they said that we could stay home, like I got a new level of fulfillment that I didn't have. So while everybody else was stressed, I was like woosah. I was still getting a paycheck. I was being able to work from home, and I was like locked in and focused.
hmm
So I remember thinking that the information that, or the way that mental health was being presented to me, did not serve me. And it did not serve me because I was already really good at coping. And because I was already good at coping, I still felt like I needed more depth. I needed more substance. And one day I was at the doctor's office with one of my children, and I just remember looking at the milestones chart, and I was like, it would be really nice if like adults had like milestones that were not based off of the superficial things that we use to
Oh
identify
yeah.
with. And I Google adult development, and by gosh, this guy named Robert Keegan popped up, and he had a whole framework for adult development. I studied it for about 2 years, like because it's complex. I mean, it's easy, but it's still complex. And I studied it, and I realized how it was supporting me, And the concept around adult development is rooted in capacity, but capacity more so about how we develop cognitively or not, which impacts the way that we meet our demands in life, whether it's the things that we choose or whether it's the things that life throw at us based off of what we do choose.
Okay. So that's Robert Keegan, Adult
Uh-huh.
Development. Cool. I pulled up I had a quote on Instagram for this podcast that I had pulled up from Lessons in Chemistry. I don't know if you saw that series on Apple TV, but there's a quote where it says, "No one can do it, but then you expand. You think you can't do it, and then you do it anyway, and that's being a mother." And I love that quote because I think it aligns very much with your vision of capacity, which is it's not a taught thing. It's not a too full cup. It's not a stretch thin balloon. It's our ability to expand for the circumstances.
Yep, it's not fixed.
Yeah.
It's no different from what I was saying when we first got on this call. Like for 10 years or 9 years, I don't know, 8 years, I don't know. Mother of one, right? And then we decided to have another one. Like I had to, well, working on expanding my capacity with my youngest because different personalities, they're different people. You have to learn to adjust. Just because you have one and you add two does not mean that it makes that process much easier. I always tell people as mental health professionals, like every change has the ability to impact your mental health, which has the ability to impact your capacity in that sense. So, yes, new skills. Like you have to learn new ways of being, not necessarily doing, but new ways of being. Because I say capacity is more about the who. Who
Mm-hmm.
are you? A lot of times we focus on how do we do something versus who are you?
Yep. Yep, yep. Well, I mean, I would imagine too, like a mom of one and a mom of two. So capacity, the stretched balloon theory or the two full glass would be like you think you're the same mom. So you're like, okay, we just added one more to the mix. It's an outside influence, right? But you become a different mom because you have two kids, you have two different things, and you have two different ages, right?
Yep,
And I think too, it stands like we all know this in the terms like how many of us hate to miss sleep? All of us, right? But we do it for the newborn phases. And just when you think you can't take any more, your kid's up puking all night, or you have to go to the ER. And do you sit there? You don't sit there and moan and say, I can't do that. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this because my kid needs it, right? So that's that
yep.
expansion.
And to add to that, when we're talking about motherhood, and this is for the people that choose, right? That decide that this is what you want.
Yep.
Most of us choose it, and we never know what we're really walking into, but yet we say this is the greatest job there ever is. I always say for people that struggle with capacity is because they haven't really explored their relationship with responsibility. All of the responsibilities, they tend to feel like a burden, and if your responsibilities feel like a burden, then it can't be a catalyst for growth and or capacity.
Right, right, right. When you said so, the Robert Keegan, and you said you wish they had developmental milestones for adults. What would you, if in a perfect world we had that, what would that look like?
Um, so I wouldn't use Robert Keegan's model
Okay.
for the milestones because I use that more from a cognitive standpoint. I would use Eric Erickson's
Okay.
psychosocial model. Are you familiar? You're
A little
familiar
bit,
with
yes.
it?
Yep.
So like for example, the first stage of that is mistrust versus trust. But he says that that phase is you focus on children in this aspect, right? Your kids depend on you for trust. It's all your world is centered around what your caregivers can provide to you. And I think that that still applies, but when we become adults, a milestone is trust within yourself as a mother, as a podcast host. Like you
Mm,
have to learn to trust yourself because your caregivers are no longer responsible for you, and all of the things that you may have went through and you didn't like it. I mean, it matters, but it no longer matters anymore because that foundation of self-trust will be the thing that carry you through all of the things that you're going to experience in life.
Right. And where do you think that mistrust in ourselves? Because I work with that a lot on this podcast and in my work. With the internet, we have access to all this information. So I see so many parents just lose their intuition in general, lose their trust in themselves because somebody's doing it better on Instagram, or, you've got 80 different theories of parenting. And so I see it get very, very muddled. But you kind of left an opening there for a segue where it doesn't matter how your caregivers were to you when you develop that self-trust. So let's bring up the T word that you work so much with, which is trauma, right? So where does that fit into that schema? Because it feels like that's where a lot of people are self-identifying a lot of trauma, whether it's, I hate to say this, but like regular, big T
No, no,
trauma,
no. Just say it. I'll fill in the gaps for you,
yeah, like
right? I'll
abuse
fill in
and,
the
and
gaps.
obvious trauma, as opposed to,
Life, like
life.
you don't get through. You don't go.
Right,
Nobody's children goes through life unscathed. That's
right.
just. I don't prescribe to the heal so your children don't have to heal, because I think it's too much pressure as a mom, because to think that I'm going to be perfect Patty every single day and I'm not going to yell, lose my cool, or whatever it may be, I don't think that it supports what it looks like to be a human in general. So, going back to what you were saying about trauma, and I'm actually was going to create a clip on this, so you're getting it first, Jamie,
Nice.
because I actually was thinking about it last night. Your entire childhood could be considered trauma, which is why I'm very mindful as a therapist with approach. I rather listen to you versus making you think that therapy is about starting from your childhood. Because if we think about what trauma is, the first thing I would say, trauma is subjective, and it's based off of your perception. And then I break it down into trauma is objective and subjective. So the objective piece of it is when you do talk about abuse. And when I talk about abuse, like sexual abuse, like physical abuse, or things that trauma has the ability to make you feel powerless, right? That's what
Yep.
trauma does. It makes you incapable. As children, I don't know about you, but I can't wait until I can be an adult, because I felt like I had no power.
Right.
So anytime that you would receive rejection or just not understanding what it means to be an adult, you could always feel incapable or powerless. So I think that as therapists, you have to be mindful that when people are making that transition from childhood into adulthood, that everything can be considered trauma. I think that you have objective trauma, right? Let
Right.
me go back to that. The objective trauma is the things that we, if you hear it, it's kind of like gruesome. It's like, wow, I can't believe that you went through that.
Right.
It's like abnormal. You don't expect child abuse in the sense of molestation, like those things.
Oh yeah,
Those
yeah, yeah.
things are not normal, right? But if your parent rejects you, said something that hurts your feelings, and you hung on to it for years, I I understand that we all perceive it differently, but as a child, I don't think that you understand enough about life to know that no one goes through life unscathed. Like, pain is inevitable for all of us,
Right.
but children don't have the ability to understand that. So I think that that's a fine line, because you can create victims with not understanding that as you transition, or as we create more awareness around mental health, someone's entire childhood can be considered traumatic. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this I feel like I am in both camps, because I do see, I work with parents who are really struggling with their kids, and one of the big things that comes up is like they are triggered by everything their kid does. And I'm like, okay, that's coming from somewhere. And so you got to, get a grip. But I also know that there's this level, and I had a horrific childhood by objective standards. And there is a level of where you become a victim if you sit in it.
Hmm.
And I think I was a victim early on in my life. And then at some point, even, I got therapy and all of that. But I also think at some point you get sick of your own bullshit and you're like, okay,
Oh,
like I
we can
got
curse. Okay.
enough. Like I've had like, you know, and so I can see both camps. And I do know we're in a cycle of like parents really trying to break generational cycles so that they
Hmm.
don't do exactly what their parents did to their kids, but it's leading people, I think, to think that they can provide an unscathed childhood and veer off into like permissive parenting or too worried about their
Yeah.
parenting.
I don't think that people are trying to break like generational things. I think that people are really trying to heal themselves from being human. And as long as you try to heal yourself
Uh,
from being human, I think that life is going to feel really hard for you.
yeah. Say more about that. Heal
Uh,
yourself from being human. Like you just don't want any human experience. So like,
yeah, I
what
don't
does that
think that
look like?
we've
Wally, the
realized.
end of Wally. Like we want everything like
Yeah,
super
it's like,
catered to us so that we don't have to.
yeah, it's to me, I just believe that it's unrealistic to want to have all of these things unstructured, like structured, right? And I get the idea of wanting to be successful at a thing, right? Wanting to be successful at parenting, but I also think that going back to that trust, right? Like you have to trust your journey. You have to know that your capacity in this sense, it has to be stretched, it has to be expanded. And I mentioned responsibility early on. I think that for the people, for moms that may actually be struggling, rather than exploring your relationship with all of those other things, let's explore your relationship with responsibility. Let's explore your relationship with discomfort. Let's explore your relationship with change. Let's explore your relationship with uncertainty, because when you have healthy relationships with those things, I believe that it creates space for you to have a healthy relationship with yourself, which then extends over to your children.
Mm. Yeah, I have this theory. I wake up you're gonna die laughing. I wake up in the morning, I say people are stupid and life sucks. And like that's like my first thought. And I'm a very happy person in the morning because like that's gonna happen. There's gonna be some stupid person who does something in my life. Like, and life is going to suck. There's gonna like it doesn't matter. There's gonna be a plumbing problem or there's gonna be a mistake in billing in something. You know what I mean? So it's like
When you go through life that way, you realize like and then it's like it really doesn't suck because I'm not expecting life to do what it does.
right. It's gonna
Mhm.
come at you fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, there's something magical about just when stating that at first because it's always better. Like there's always nice people too. And then you're like, oh, okay.
I agree.
Now you work mostly with I see so much of your stuff on Instagram, which I love every bit of it. Let's talk about relationship to discomfort because I think we're in a unique time with compare and despair with everybody, nobody, even the people who put their shit on Instagram, it's staged. You know what I mean? So I think we have this vision or that feeling like you had in your HR office. You're like, well, I have all the things, but I don't have the feeling. And so what I think that directly correlates to your relationship with discomfort.
I would say it correlates with your relationship to discomfort. However, if we go back to the milestones, right? I talked about trust, and we're using that Eric Erickson's model that I think really applies to adults as well. Um, One, I think is, so the next phase after that is like autonomy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when I say autonomy, it's your sense of independence and being able to do a thing. Like if you're looking at the Instagram mom who has a very clean house, you have the ability to develop your sense of confidence in being able to do those tasks as well. But the thing that comes to my mind is this whole concept of like industry versus inferiority.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't trust yourself, when you don't have purpose behind like what it is that you're doing, or you're not taking action to consistently feel or have the life that you want, ultimately when you get on Instagram, you can have those same feelings. So I think it's less about I don't have and I wish that I could have, and more so about kind of like that internal framework
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't been nurtured. And we get a lot of plug and play information today, quick fixes in terms of what we need to do. Like, that's where the discomfort comes in, right? Like, if you're seeing something on social media that makes you feel bad about yourself, then, take some time off of social media, right?
Right.
That's the discomfort piece. But the piece that we're not addressing is you spent 5 hours on social media and the kitchen is still dirty, like you haven't taken that initiative to prove to yourself that you are able to balance the baby and have a clean kitchen. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to be exhausted because I have a 10-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, I have a full-time job today, I create content,
Yeah, yeah.
I have a son that plays competitive soccer. Like, I'm busy, but it brings me joy knowing that I get to live life on my terms and how I want to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Same.
and so I go back to like that internal framework, which is why I dismiss it oftentimes if you listen to my content is like these coping mechanisms that we offer to people, whether it be setting boundaries. And I'm not saying that those things are not the foundation to building up to these milestones that I'm
Yep.
referring to. But what I am saying is they are short term fix. It's a short term fix. And what most people end up doing is life feels like a constant reset. Like you're always resetting, 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 resetting.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, it does feel that way. And I also think when you were talking about social media, one thing that really stood out for me that I talk about on this podcast a lot is like, then you feel bad about something or somebody states their opinion about something and you get the, oh, you're shaming moms, which then just throws everybody. And then there'll be a pile on about shaming. And, I contend that if you feel shame, there's something in you that has
Yeah.
been activated because there's a nugget of truth there, right? And so, and the inability to just scroll on by, so then you feel like you have to like warn somebody. So then doesn't that throw people into that victim mentality, which is so prevalent today?
Oh yes. Oh yes. What was your question, Jane? Because I had like a bunch of thoughts that just ran
I
through
didn't
my
have a
mind
question.
when you
It
said
reminded me of like Instagram and if you like not having that structural framework. Cause if I trust myself, so for example, I homeschooled my son. So
that.
there are people who say shit ton of shit about homeschooling. And I'm like, it doesn't apply.
Like
I
in a
raised
bad
a
way?
health. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like unsocialized, you're going to have, your
Oh,
kid's
okay,
not good.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. But, and they may not say it to me. I'll see other comments or something like that, but it doesn't apply. So I don't get upset. There's no shame. I did a good job, but I see other people get like really riled up.
Well, it's exactly what you're saying, right? There's that trust in why you chose to make that. There's a trust in you as a woman, as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sense of, because my mind always goes like remembering all of them. So, a sense of independence in your task. So feeling good and independent, like you can be the teacher to your son. And then there's purpose, right? In a sense to where you don't feel guilty because the initiative or the will to do it is there. And then competence, right? Like you being able to watch your son thrive and not necessarily feel inferior to other children if you decide that you're going to take them outside to the play park and you realize that hey, he still can engage. So all of that kind of builds on, and then that builds on your identity, right? Like I homeschool my son and I'm able to stand solid in that despite what other people may say, because there's that self-trust, there's that sense of autonomy, that independence. I don't feel inferior to those people that choose to do otherwise, because I understand that we all get to choose, which then creates this strong identity in self and your choices.
So let me ask you this. So I am particular, like I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I also have a healthy dose of fuck off to when I need it. So, but for say like a mom, there's like a lot of people who become parents kind of maybe without that framework built. And then they
All
realize,
of us do.
yeah, like the framework is so weak. I'm a parent, but now I'm in the fucking trenches. I'm catching puke in my hands. There's diarrhea shooting out of his butt. He hasn't had a clean nose since September. You know what I mean? So we're all in the trenches trying to get through those first 2 years, especially. So how can you start to build that framework when you already feel? I mean, motherhood is the steepest learning curve in the. They let you home with a baby with no prior experience needed, and you're like, what the hell am I going to do with this 8 pound crying thing?
They say just keep it alive for the first year.
That's
That's the
all it
only go. Yeah, that's
is.
it. Just keep if you can keep the baby alive, you're good.
So like how are there any like, and I know this is like not quick fixes, but how do you start to build that framework of confidence? Is it drowning out? Is it just kind of building up that inner fuck off? Is it that maybe drowning out social media or those compare and despair kind of situations?
I think that it starts with recognizing that it's a transition. It's a change. Like
Mm,
reminding yourself that this is new. I've never done this before. Because I've never done this before is not going to look like somebody's 10 years or somebody else's 2 years. So I that's the first thing, right? Because we have to recognize that entering motherhood is a transition, it's a change. And when we don't recognize that we are entering a change, or I think that people just like, oh, I'm a mom now. No, like your whole life just changed. And as a my therapy background, which is well, I always say that therapists are there to support you because we realize that you're going to go through transitions in life that have the ability to plague your mental health. And by plague your mental health, how you think, feel, and behave. You become a new mom, you absolutely know nothing. I expect for yourself for your self-esteem to be rocked, right? Because you're having to learn something new. Um, you used to know at one point you used to look pretty, you would get dressed all up, and today you just feel like you look like a slob. Sense of identity is now gone because you haven't necessarily figured out how to find the balance between taking care of self versus taking care of baby. And
mm-hmm.
I think that those things are normal. And that's why I say when we talk about healing yourself from human, a lot of us don't want to go through the trenches of those things, which is that discomfort. Like it is not necessarily supposed to be easy because you have to find your rhythm at some point. We all
Right.
have to find our rhythm at some point, but in order to find your rhythm, you got to dance a little bit. You got to take a few missteps. Like
You got
you
to
got
get
to
off
be
the
off
beat for a
beat.
while.
Exactly, 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 exactly.
That's a really brilliant point that I think we talk a lot about maternal care, and of course it's shit in this country, but and postpartum and the idea of like recognizing and maybe even like for people listening, recognizing even year to year your child is different, then you become a different person. And I don't know if you've seen this viral video. It's a mom talking to her baby and she's like, listen, this is your first time here. She said, but this is my first time being a mom. So we're going to have to figure this out together here. So I'm going to make mistakes and you're going to make mistakes, but maybe honoring that shift. And when they start to be toddlers and they're fucking all over the place, right? They're just so volatile. And so, you know, they're like skins inside out, and then recognizing like, oh, it's a different shift. And that changes you as a person. That feels like that's landing with me.
Yeah,
That's
because
great.
that's what we're struggling with. We're not struggling with you now have a baby, you're struggling with the transition that just took place.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're struggling with. No different from if you were to start a new job, relocate to a new city, get married, and oftentimes, there are several changes happening all at once. You're losing a sense of identity. That's a change. That's a transition.
Yep.
Okay, you're going from no children to children. You're probably
Cool to
just
not. Cool
yeah,
to
those
not.
are a lot of transit those are a lot of changes. Those are a lot of changes, but I think because we see them as normal, like women have children, right? Like
Yeah.
or women choose the women that choose to have children, or it's like, oh, that it's normal. It's normal, but
It's
it's
huge.
still a change. It's still a transition, and if you are more aware of that, that's the prevention rather than intervention part, right? And to you realize that okay, I'm getting ready to step into motherhood. This is a change. It has the ability to rock my entire identity. Maybe I need to seek support, whether it be a therapist. Maybe I need to start building community by going to a baby wrapping class, and
Mm-hmm.
I can meet new moms in there. So that's how we approach those things because you, you have to find your rhythm. There's no way around it. And the more that you wait for it to sort of fall into your lap, the less you will feel that you actually have the capacity because parenting becomes about, if I get into Robert Keegan's model, right? First part is it's the instant gratification. That's what I refer to as survival mode. Everything is based off of like, let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. So you're always reacting to everything, and then eventually you go into what he refers to. I call it a transactional mind. He refers to it as the imperial mind, I believe. But everything that you do is based off of rewards and consequences, which is not necessarily sustainable long term. So when you say that you're trying to eliminate generational curses, right? Is that based off of your values, like who you are as a person? Or is it based off of the rewards and consequences? Like, my kids are going to live a better life versus my kids won't struggle. And if you operate from that place, there's not a strong sense of self there. So everything feels like you're teetering. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Versus it's important for me to show my children that I'm human. I'm not going to get it right. Like, similar to what you were talking about, that video, that comes more from a place of values. My guess would be that person values, I don't, learning,
Mm-hmm.
growing, right? Because that's what that says. If you say I'm new, I'm a new mommy, you're new into this world. We're gonna have to figure this thing out together. That means that I value the process of growth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also think it's high stakes change, right? Because like there's almost no other, I can't think of another adult big thing. You get a job, you can always quit. You get married, you could always get a divorce if it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
right? You have a baby, you can't fuck this up. You know what I mean?
And
Like you
that's
feel
why
like,
I would challenge people with playing victim, because it's less about you can't F it up. I mean, there are people that are willing to take your children. And I go to the
right.
extreme with it. Like, if this is too much, you have a choice. You
Yes.
always have a choice. Like, there are people that cannot have children that would love to adopt this baby for you. You
Yeah.
can't figure, like, and I think when you put it into perspective, like, you chose this. This is what you're choosing. You always have options. You can decide to walk out and say, F all of it. But for whatever reason, you're not able to do that because of guilt, shame. But that's always an option too. And people are like, well, I won't do that. Well, it's an option.
Right.
People
It's
do
funny.
it.
It's very funny. We're so alike because I used to say that, especially I would work with dads who were feeling too overwhelmed and you don't
Hmm.
understand. I have to. And I said, no, you don't. People
No,
leave
you
their
don't.
kids all the time. Dads walk out all the time. And you don't have to go to work. There's plenty of dads who don't work. Like, and they'll be like, yeah, but I'm not that guy. And I was like, yes, but that's a choice, right? And so I think what I was referring to though is like an internal, it's not so much like that you can't give away your kid because you could, right? But I think it's more that we feel the
Pressure.
pressure, yeah, of like I got to get this right. So many people I think are just trying to avoid therapy for their kids, but I guess that's avoiding human, right?
It is, because you have no control over how that child responds to you. I've literally heard people come into therapy and say, I am traumatized because my parents talked about feelings all the time. I'm traumatized
Yeah,
because, like, we had such a great life and I feel like I don't have a sense of resiliency today. Like, I've actually heard those things. Like,
yeah,
people are
that's
traumatized
data
now for
showing that.
having, yeah, having a good life.
Yeah, my son likes he likes to read about guys who have overcome, they had terrible childhoods, they overcame, they became the best in their field. And he comes downstairs one day with a book and he's like, you didn't give me enough trauma, I needed more trauma to be stronger. I'm like, sorry buddy, but I make a big joke, but it's true. I saved from day one. I said I'm going to save for therapy instead of college because like I'll at least own my mistakes and here I'll help you pay for
Yep. And that's what most people, that's what I would say that becoming a therapist for me has been very freeing, because I used to, like, I'm like, do not curse in front of the kids. I'm like, all these damn kids curse. Like, they curse when you're not around, whether you curse at home or not. They may have said a curse word elsewhere because it's
it.
just
Right.
a part of growing. And the truth is, your children are not always just in your environment. There's so many influences in childhood. There's
Oh
so
yeah.
many influences in childhood.
And you just never know. Like you said, I think it's this whole, yeah, we can't heal from being human. And you can't control. I think that's the overarching message I'm getting from you today, particularly to mothers, is you can't control every outcome. You don't know, your child was born with their particular DNA. They're going to have their own responses. So there is no perfect plan. So just
Mm-mm.
be as good as you can for your kid, and that's good enough. You know, the good
That is
enough
good
mom.
enough.
Yeah.
Because I hate to tell you, and this is my dad always said, it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Like, life does not reward effort. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't sometimes. And if you're so attached to the outcome, it makes living very hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love discomfort. I started doing obstacle course racing, like,
Hmm.
you know, those and long ones. And overcoming those obstacles, it was so great for like my whole I switched my whole outlook to discomfort being growth.
I'm the
It
same.
I can't sit in comfort. It doesn't I don't know. I like cold plunging. I
People
like
would
all the
tell you that it's trauma because you can't sit in comfort. They would tell you that it's trauma. But I think that it nurtures something that we all have. Like, we are inherently wired for growth.
Mhm.
And because I used to think the same thing, I'm like, they were like, because they have said maybe it's trauma, like you can't sit down based off of what you've seen and what you've experienced. No, we are inherently wired for growth. And some of us, like that urge to tap into that wiring for growth, it's like maybe it's deeper for others than it is for some, but I would say that I am very similar to that, Jamie.
Well, there's a piece I can't think of it now. Andrew Huberman talks about it. There's a little thing in your brain that when you do something hard and overcome, it grows bigger. So that's where you start to. For me, that's building that framework too of that confidence and that self
Yeah,
trust because now I know whatever comes my way, I can overcome it. I'll work through it. And that my son and I always say we can figure it out. I don't care what the problem is. It's figure outable. Let's figure it out.
I would agree. And that's why it's, the conversations around mental health today, they don't necessarily support that we are inherently wired for growth, because when I hear people talk about mental health, they speak about it from this place that your mental health is fragile. Like, it's this thing that needs to be protected, like it's
Yeah, yeah.
glass. And it's not. Like, your mental health, when I hear people say, and I say it's stupid, like, because I can't find another word for it. Like, it's just stupid to say I'm protecting my mental health. Now, let me just throw nuance, because I'm learning on social media now. There are seasons to where people may feel like they need to retreat, right?
Hmm,
But
hmm.
overall, if you spend your life protecting your mental health, what you are saying is, I am protecting how I currently think, feel, and behave. And if you protect how you currently think, feel, and behave, you do not create space for you to optimize. Like, you
Right.
don't.
And to grow. Yeah.
No, you do not. And at some point, and I think we do this every day, like that model that I was referring to you, he talks about integrity versus despair, but
Hmm.
he talks about it from older age, like at 65. I think we do that every single day. We
Yeah.
reflect back over our lives. So, like what you were saying, when moms are getting on social media, it's because that internal conviction knows that you're not doing the thing to work towards what it is that you want, or you're not nurturing um, that inherent need for growth.
Yeah.
So you feel convicted.
Yep. And yeah, it'd be great, right? Like mothers, like if you're listening to this, like at the end of the night, sort of recapping instead of like, ugh, I barely got through, being like, oh hell no, like when I end a race, be like, I overcame this obstacle, I overcame this obstacle. You could give yourself a whole little pep talk at the end of the day.
Yep. Yep.
Well, you know what? It just reminds me too is like pain is inevitable, suffering's optional, right?
It is. It is.
Oh, well, thank you. If you have anything else you want to talk about, I'd love to talk about it, but I also don't want to hog all your time. I know you just came off recording another podcast.
I did. It's okay. I don't like what it was. This is day 7 for me. Last week I had Monday when I woke up, I had 3 or 4,000 followers.
Wow. So
Today I have like
something's
a
just
hundred
bumping
and
in.
fifty thousand followers.
Wow.
Yeah, like 150. Last time I checked, it was 157,000. I haven't looked at my phone yet,
Oh, good
but
for you. I'd be obsessed. I'd be like, what?
the first 2 days I was like watching it grow, but now I'm like, oh, this is a lot.
That's awesome when you
Um,
tip yeah, it is a lot when you have to start replying.
d-
Yeah.
I've kind of given up on that too.
Yeah. You know what you take you kind of you can take it from like somebody like the holistic psychologist or something. You can see like I think she answers for like the first half hour and then yeah, you can't get to everybody. But so tell everybody your Instagram, and I'm sorry I mispronounced your name. I said Raquel and it's Raquel.
Raquel, yeah.
Raquel.
No worries. You did it better than some of my family members do. So they say Rockwell. So my Instagram is Raquel underscore the underscore capacity underscore expert. But I believe that if you put Raquel and capacity in there, that my page will pop up.
It comes up. And then
Yeah,
you have also a course, yes?
I do.
On Success is Complicated?
It's Master the Art of a Thriving Life for adults, and it dives right into like that first module dives right into like your life roles, and I think that that's really important because it ties back into what I was talking to you about with responsibility. A lot of us don't even know what we're carrying. We just
Yeah.
know that we're carrying a lot and it feels like we have a weight on our shoulders. But when you start to break down all of your life roles, I'm not just talking about like I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a sister. I'm talking about I'm a lifelong learner. I am like some of these intangible things as well. You realize, like, wow, I am carrying a lot. And it allows you to step back, but step back and really think about all of the things that you are committing to and some of the things that you could even take off of your plate.
Yeah, and I happened to see a floating comment of yours on Instagram just in passing, and it said being you can care without carrying. And I
Yes, you
love
can.
that. Like that's a
Yeah.
really good thing. Like you can care, and I think so many of us think we have to carry everything.
Everything. And
Yeah.
that's why we feel like we're constantly carrying a weight on our shoulders because we internalize everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've
Hmm.
gotten mine down to like a backpack that I can
You did.
take.
You got it.
I'm done
I
with the
like you,
luggage set.
Jamie. I like you, Jamie. When look, the last podcast episode that I just did, I would say that you two, I don't, I feel very aligned, right? In the
Yeah.
sense of people that really believe in this radical responsibility. That does not mean that we're not saying that life isn't hard sometimes, that we do not struggle, but it does say that, we're going to make the best out of what life has handed us, and we're going to decide and choose how we want to move forward. So the last person that I just did the podcast with, very similar in that sense, like your personality. And we were talking about labels because that I talk about like the labels and how we
Right.
misuse those
Diagnoses.
things.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know how we ended up. Oh, I mentioned zodiac signs because people were in my comments was like, and you should have talked about zodiac signs. And then I asked him, I was like, even though I put in the comments, I was like, I'm guilty of this because I love Pisces. And he was like, I'm a Pisces too. I was like, Pisces gang
My son's a Pisces. Oh no, he's a Gemini. Yeah, sorry.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Nice. Oh, well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Get to her Instagram, Raquel's Instagram, because Lord, every single post is a freaking mic drop. It's
thank you.
very refreshing to see. All
Thank
right,
you.
guys. Thanks for listening. As always, rock on.